November 7th, 1849. Chatham County, Georgia. In the heart of Savannah's public market, a young woman stands on the auction platform. Her wrists are raw and bleeding from the rough rope that binds them. She is only 22 years old, 5 months pregnant, and right now, she is being sold for 19 cents, not dollars, 19 cents. Less than the price of a pound of coffee. The auctioneer, Cyrus Feldman, holds the bill of sale in his hand. His voice rings out over the crowd, calm, practiced, emotionless. But something feels terribly wrong with this sale. Even the most hardened slave traders in the crowd are shifting uncomfortably. This one transaction will set off a chain of events so dark and disturbing that the city of Savannah will spend the next 80 years trying to erase every single record of what happened here today. Tonight, we bring back to light the truth they tried to bury forever. We follow this woman's story all the way to its shocking end, an ending that includes rape, betrayal, cold-blooded murder, and one act of resistance so powerful that when it was finally uncovered in 1931, the authorities immediately sealed the evidence and forbade anyone from ever speaking about it publicly again. This is the story they never wanted told. Before we go any further, please do one important thing right now. Subscribe to the Macabre Record and hit the notification bell. Stories like this, stories that expose the darkest, most hidden chapters of American history, are the ones that get suppressed, buried, and forgotten. I want to know where you're watching from tonight. Drop your city or country in the comments below. Let's see how far this truth travels. Let's build a community that refuses to let these stories disappear. Now let's begin. The woman on that platform had a name, though it appears in official records only twice, and both times spelled differently. On the bill of sale from her previous owner, she is listed as Diner. In a coroner's report filed 6 years later, she is called Diana. But when she finally told her own story, to the one person who truly listened, she called herself Denina. Denina was born in 1827 on a rice plantation just outside Charleston, South Carolina. She never knew her father. Her mother, Patience, worked the fields from sunrise until long after dark. Her hands were permanently stained green from the rice stalks. Her back became bent from years of brutal labor that eventually killed her when Denina was just 11 years old. After Patience's death, Denina was sold to a tobacco merchant in Charleston named Elias Cartwright. He needed domestic help for his growing household. Elias was 43, married to a woman named Constance, and father to 4 children between the ages of 6 and 15. He was also a deacon at the First Presbyterian Church, a member of the Charleston Chamber of Commerce, and, by every public account, a respectable Christian businessman who treated his property, human or otherwise, with appropriate Christian values. That was the public story. The private reality was very different. From age 11 to 14, Denina worked in the Cartwright household. She cleaned, cooked, looked after the younger children, whatever was demanded of her. And Elias watched her. He watched her in the way enslaved women quickly learn to recognize, that predatory stare that signals danger, that forces constant alertness just to survive. When Denina turned 14, the watching turned into action. What happened cannot really be called between them. There was no equality, no choice. It was rape. Repeated. Systematic. Sustained over years. Denina had no legal right to refuse. The law did not recognize bodily autonomy for enslaved women. The law saw them as property. And property cannot be violated, because property has no self to violate. Constance knew. She saw the pregnancy. She saw the changes in Denina's body that could not be hidden. But Constance never confronted her husband. She confronted Denina. She accused the 16-year-old girl of seduction, of tempting a good Christian man, of deliberately destroying the sanctity of a godly home. In Constance's eyes, the blame lay entirely with the powerless teenager, not with the 46-year-old man who held absolute power. In March 1843, Denina gave birth to a daughter. The child was noticeably light-skinned. Her features clearly showed mixed parentage. Elias refused to acknowledge her as his. He named her Ruth, registered her in his property ledger as offspring of servant Diner, father unknown, and continued his life exactly as before. Constance demanded that Denina and the baby be removed from the main house. They were sent to the cramped servants' quarters behind the residence, a place barely fit for living, shared with 6 other enslaved people. Denina raised Ruth while still working 16-hour days. She nursed her daughter at night. She sang to her in whispers, songs her own mother had sung, carrying memories of Africa, of freedom, of a world before chains. She watched Ruth grow, watched the child's features become more and more obviously Elias's. Neighbors began to whisper, to speculate, to quietly acknowledge what everyone already knew but politely ignored. In 1847, when Ruth was 4 years old, Elias sold her. Sold her to a slave trader named Marcus Pennington for $400, a normal price for a healthy child that age. He did it on a Tuesday morning without any warning to Denina, without allowing a goodbye, without even letting the mother have one final moment with her daughter. Denina was working in the kitchen when she heard Ruth screaming from the front of the house. She ran outside. The child was already gone, loaded into a wagon disappearing down the street. Ruth's tiny hands reached back toward the only home she had ever known. Denina collapsed in the street. Other enslaved people in the household had to carry her inside. For 3 days she did not speak, did not eat, barely moved. She had entered a grief so deep it looked like death. Perhaps she wished it was death, but her body refused to give her that mercy. She survived. Survival meant going back to work, meant continuing to serve the man who had raped her and then sold the child born from that rape, meant living in a world built to destroy her humanity piece by piece. 2 years later, in the summer of 1849, Denina became pregnant again. The father was Elias Cartwright. There was no doubt, no question. Constance's rage was immediate and total. She could tolerate one incident, one child, one public embarrassment. But a second pregnancy made the truth impossible to hide. A second pregnancy shattered the lie that Denina was a seductress and Elias an innocent victim. It proved Elias was a man who repeatedly raped an enslaved woman he owned and had no intention of stopping. Constance gave him an ultimatum: get rid of her. I will not live under the same roof as a woman bearing your children. Sell her, trade her, give her away. I don't care. But she leaves this house within the month, or I will make this public in ways that will destroy your reputation forever. Elias understood the threat. His standing in Charleston society depended on respectability. Wealthy men were expected to be discreet about their violations of enslaved women, whispered about, perhaps, but never openly admitted. A wife publicly accusing her husband of serial rape of his property would cross a line even Charleston's tolerance for slavery could not ignore. So Elias made arrangements. He contacted a business associate in Savannah, a merchant named William Hadley, who owed him roughly $800 from a failed cotton deal. Elias offered to forgive the debt in exchange for Hadley buying Denina and taking her to Savannah, far enough from Charleston that she could never return. Far enough that Constance would never have to see her again. Far enough that Elias could pretend she had never existed. Hadley agreed. The sale was arranged for early November during Savannah's regular public auction. But Elias added one final, deliberately cruel condition. The minimum bid would be 19 cents. In 1849, a healthy woman of childbearing age sold for $700 to $900. A pregnant woman, whose child would become additional property, was worth even more. Setting the price at 19 cents was calculated humiliation. It screamed, "This woman is worthless to me. She is damaged goods. Whoever buys her will know she can be treated with cruelty, because she was sold like trash." Hadley came to Charleston in early November. They met in Elias's study. Papers were signed. The bill of sale was prepared. Approximate age 22, pregnant approximately 5 months, price 19 cents. Elias signed with the same pen he used for church documents and business contracts. Neat, legible, completely ordinary. Denina was told the night before she was to leave. No chance to gather belongings. She had none. No chance to say goodbye to the people she had lived beside for years. She was property being transferred from one owner to another. Property does not need emotional consideration. The journey from Charleston to Savannah took 2 days by wagon. Hadley hired a driver, a white man named Silas Burke who specialized in transporting human cargo. Denina rode in the back, hands bound, a precaution against escape. Though where could a 5 months pregnant woman run in a world where every white person had the power to stop and question any black person without papers? They arrived in Savannah on November 6th. The city was larger than Charleston, busier, alive with commerce and construction. The port buzzed, ships loading and unloading cotton, rice, tobacco, luxury goods, and thousands of human beings bought, sold, and traded like livestock. Hadley took Denina straight to the auction house, a large wooden building near the waterfront where sales happened 3 times a week. Cyrus Feldman examined her with the cold eye of someone who had valued thousands of lives for sale. He noted her age, her condition, her health. Then he saw the bill of sale and the minimum price of 19 cents. His face changed. "Something's wrong with this one," he said to Hadley. "Disease? Injury? Mental issue?" "Hadley, nothing like that. She's healthy. The child looks viable." "Then why 19 cents? The seller wanted her gone fast. It's a personal matter. Family dispute." Feldman understood instantly. This woman had either done something or had something done to her that made her previous owner desperate to remove her forever. The low price was a signal, a warning to buyers. "This property comes with trouble. You'll include that in the description," Feldman said. "I won't misrepresent her and risk my reputation." Hadley didn't care how she was presented. He just wanted the deal done. The auction was set for the next morning, November 7th, at 10 a.m. Denina spent the night in a holding cell under the auction house, a damp stone room where people waiting to be sold were kept like animals. She did not sleep. She sat against the cold wall, hands on her stomach, feeling her child move. This child would be born into slavery, would never know freedom, would belong to Hadley or whoever bought them tomorrow, would live and die as property unless the entire system collapsed. In November 1849, that seemed as likely as God himself coming down to judge the men who built fortunes on human suffering. When morning came, Denina was brought up and placed near the auction platform. She could see the crowd, maybe 60 or 70 people. Serious buyers, plantation owners, merchants, and spectators who came to watch human beings sold like cattle, finding it no more troubling than a livestock market. At exactly 10 a.m., Cyrus Feldman took his place. The November sun was already warm. The air smelled of salt water and tobacco smoke. He started with furniture, chairs, and a dining table from an estate sale. Then livestock, horses, chickens. Then people. He sold a young man, about 20, for $950. An elderly woman described as an excellent cook for $300. Then he called for Denina. Silas Burke brought her onto the platform and positioned her in the center. Feldman read aloud in a voice that carried over the crowd. Female, named Diner. Approximately 22 years of age. Currently with child, estimated 5 months. Experienced in domestic service, cooking, cleaning, household tasks. Minimum bid, 19 cents. The crowd reacted instantly. 19 cents? Someone shouted. What's wrong with her? Is she diseased? Feldman replied calmly. I'm informed she is healthy, able to work. The child appears viable. The price reflects a personal matter between seller and property, not any defect in the property itself. The explanation satisfied no one. In the economy of slavery, price signaled quality. A woman offered for 19 cents had to be fundamentally broken, diseased, dangerous, mentally unsound. No rational buyer would risk money on such a low price unless they knew something others didn't. Several men who had been ready to bid turned away, but 3 stayed interested. First, William Hadley himself, there to fulfill his deal with Elias. Second, a tall, thin stranger in traveling clothes, standing at the back, face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Third, local Savannah plantation owner Thornton Graves, owner of a mid-sized cotton plantation 15 miles outside the city, known among enslaved people as one of the cruelest masters in Chatham County. His plantation had the highest death rate of any similar operation, not from accident or disease, but because Graves deliberately worked people to death, calculating it was more profitable to squeeze maximum labor quickly than to maintain workers long-term. Graves had been watching Denina since she stepped on the platform. A healthy pregnant woman sold for 19 cents? That kind of opportunity did not come often. Cyrus Feldman raised his hand to quiet the crowd. 19 cents, he called. Do I have a bid of 19 cents for this property? William Hadley raised his hand immediately. 19 cents. The crowd turned to look at him. Hadley was known in Savannah, a respected merchant with legitimate business. His bid gave Denina a thin layer of credibility. If Hadley was interested, perhaps she wasn't as defective as the price suggested. But before Feldman could acknowledge it, Another voice cut through. 25 cents. Everyone turned. It was Thornton Graves. Arms crossed. Face unreadable. Hadley's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected competition. 50 cents, Hadley countered. Graves smiled, not a pleasant smile. $1. The crowd was riveted. Two men bidding against each other for a woman offered at trash prices. This was no ordinary sale anymore. This was a contest. Hadley hesitated. He had agreed to buy Denina to settle Elias's debt, not to get into a bidding war. The forgiven debt was $800. Spending real money would put him at a loss. $2, Hadley said tightly. Graves stepped forward, enjoying the attention. $5. Hadley looked at Feldman, then at Graves. Calculating. Weighing. Finally, he shook his head and stepped back. Graves had won. $5 once, Feldman called. $5 twice. Then the stranger at the back spoke. $10. Every head turned. The man removed his hat. His face was visible now, weathered, scarred along the left cheek, eyes cold like winter sky. Mid-30s. Something about him suggested a life of violence. Military, perhaps, or worse. Who are you? Feldman asked, routine question. Auctioneers needed to know bidders could pay. My name is Jacob Marsh. New to Savannah. I have business here and need domestic help. Do you have $10, Mr. Marsh? Marsh stepped forward, reached into his coat, pulled out a leather purse, counted out 10 silver dollars, one by one, and placed them on the podium. I do. Thornton Graves stared at Marsh with open hostility. He didn't like being outbid. Didn't like strangers ruining his easy win. 15, Graves said. 20, Marsh replied instantly. 30. The crowd was enthralled. The price had jumped from 19 cents to $50 in minutes. This was no longer about buying a pregnant, enslaved woman cheaply. This had become a public battle of wills. Graves looked at Marsh, trying to figure him out. Then he decided. $100. The crowd gasped. $100 was a fair price for a healthy woman, but far beyond what anyone expected for this auction. Graves was making a statement. He would not be beaten by some unknown traveler. Jacob Marsh met Graves' stare. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his voice carried clearly across the crowd. $200. Silence fell, complete. $200 was irrational. Even with the pregnancy, even if the child survived and became valuable property later, $200 would take years to recover. This was no longer about money. This was about dominance. About refusing to lose. Graves had built his life on never yielding. 300, Graves said, voice hard, angry. 350, Marsh countered. 400, 500. The bids climbed. $600, $700, $800. When it reached $1,000, William Hadley quietly slipped out of the auction house. He had no interest in going further. He needed to report back to Elias Cartwright that their simple transaction had become something complicated, expensive, and potentially dangerous. $1,200. Thornton Graves stopped. Not because he lacked money, but because he suddenly understood Jacob Marsh would keep bidding until Graves was ruined. This stranger wasn't buying property. He was destroying whoever stood against him. $1, 200 once, Feldman called, voice uncertain now. This auction had spiraled beyond anything he had ever handled. $1, 200 twice. He looked at Graves, one last chance. Graves shook his head, face red with humiliation and rage. Sold to Mr. Jacob Marsh for $1,200. The crowd exploded in talk. $1, 200 for a woman who started at 19 cents. The story would spread across Savannah by nightfall, become legend, be retold and exaggerated until no one remembered the truth, only the myth. But Denina, standing on that platform the whole time, hands still bound, pregnancy visible under her thin dress, understood something the crowd did not. She understood she had just been bought by a man willing to spend a fortune to stop someone else from owning her. And that meant Jacob Marsh either knew something about her that made her priceless, or he knew something about Thornton Graves that made stopping him worth any price. Either way, it terrified her. The paperwork was finished within the hour. Jacob Marsh paid $1,200 in gold coins from a leather bag. Cyrus Feldman prepared the deed of sale, listing Denina's description, age, condition. At the bottom, Jacob Marsh signed his name in careful, neat handwriting. By law, she was now his property. Thornton Graves watched from across the auction house, face dark with fury. As Marsh turned to leave, leading Denina toward the exit, Graves stepped in front of them. "Mr. Marsh." A word. Marsh stopped. He did not let go of Denina's arm. When he turned to face Graves, his expression was calm, almost neutral. "Graves, you've made a very poor investment. That woman isn't worth half what you paid." "Marsh, perhaps. Then why bid so aggressively?" "Because I wanted her. And I have the means to pay for what I want." Graves stepped closer. "You're new to Savannah. Perhaps you don't understand how things work here. Certain people are accustomed to certain courtesies. When I bid on property, others usually step aside." Marsh's tone stayed mild, but cold underneath. "Is that so? Then maybe you should have bid higher." The two men stood face to face. Tension thick. Dangerous. Finally, Graves stepped back. "Enjoy your purchase, Mr. Marsh. I'm sure she'll be everything you hoped for." He turned and walked away. But Denina saw the stiffness in his shoulders, the violence he was barely holding back. This was not over. Men like Thornton Graves did not accept public humiliation quietly. Jacob Marsh led Denina out of the auction house into the street. The November sun was high. The city was alive with midday business. Marsh walked fast, not roughly, but with clear purpose, as if he wanted to put as much distance as possible between them and that place. They reached a simple farm wagon parked 2 blocks away, canvas cover. Marsh helped Denina climb into the back, touch impersonal but not cruel. Then he got on the driver's bench, took the reins, and urged the horse forward. They rode in silence through Savannah's streets, past shops, homes, the city market, the cathedral, until the buildings gave way to forest and farmland. Only when they were well beyond the city, on a narrow dirt path lined with pine trees and palmetto, did Jacob Marsh finally speak. "My name is Jacob Marsh. You can call me that, or sir, whichever you prefer. I am not going to hurt you. I am not going to sell you. And I am not going to force myself on you. Do you understand?" Denina said nothing. She had heard promises before, learned that words from men often meant nothing without actions to back them. Marsh continued, "I know you don't trust me. I wouldn't trust me either if I were in your place. But I need you to listen carefully, because your life and your child's life depend on what happens in the next few days." He paused, steered around a fallen branch. "Elias Cartwright didn't send you here just to get rid of you. He sent you here to die. Not right away. Not obviously. But he arranged everything so you would end up with someone who would work you to death, or worse. The 19-cent minimum price was designed to attract exactly one kind of buyer. Men like Thornton Graves. Men who buy damaged property because they know they can squeeze every drop of value out of it through cruelty before it's used up completely. Denina's blood turned cold. "How do you know about Elias?" "I know a great deal about Elias Cartwright," Marsh said. "I know he raped you repeatedly for years. I know he fathered at least one child with you, a daughter named Ruth. I know he sold that child to erase the evidence of his crimes. And I know he sent you here so you could never return to Charleston and embarrass him again." Denina felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Crying was weakness. She could not afford weakness. "Who are you?" "A friend," Marsh said. "Or at least a friend of people who were your friends." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Without looking away from the road, he handed it back to her. "Read it." Denina opened it with shaking hands. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the words stole her breath. "Denina, if you are reading this, you have been purchased by Jacob Marsh. That means the first part of our plan worked. Jacob works with people who help enslaved people reach freedom. He has been preparing for your arrival in Savannah for 3 months. Trust him. Do what he says. He is risking his life to help you." The letter was unsigned, but at the bottom, carefully drawn, was a small symbol, a bird in flight, wings spread wide. Denina recognized it instantly. It was the mark her mother had taught her, the mark the women in their family had used for generations to say to each other, "I am here. I am with you. I have not forgotten." "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "From a woman in Charleston named Bethy. She's elderly. Works as a cook in Elias Cartwright's household. She has been watching you for years, watching what Elias did to you, what Constance allowed to happen. When she learned you were being sent to Savannah, when she discovered the auction was arranged to deliver you to Graves, she contacted people she knew, people who run what we call the Underground Railroad. They contacted me." Denina's mind spun. Bethy, the old cook everyone treated like furniture. But she had been watching. Connected. and she had saved her. The Underground Railroad? Denina said slowly. The stories are true, Marsh confirmed. There are people, black and white, who help enslaved people escape to free states, to Canada, to places where the law does not see human beings as property. It's dangerous. It's illegal. It requires careful planning. But it is possible. You're saying you're going to help me escape. I'm saying I'm going to try. Whether we succeed depends on many things, most of which I can't control. The biggest danger right now is Thornton Graves. What about him? Marsh's hands tightened on the reins. Graves is not just a cruel plantation owner. He is also a slave catcher. He makes extra money hunting fugitives and returning them for reward. He has connections all over Georgia and South Carolina. Men who owe him favors. Men who will help him if he asks. And I just humiliated him in public. Spent $1,200 to stop him from getting you. He will want to know why. He will investigate. And if he discovers I'm with the Underground Railroad, he will come after both of us. Then we need to leave, Denina said. Now? Tonight. As far and as fast as possible. We can't, Marsh said. Not yet. Why not? Because Graves will be watching the roads out of Savannah. He'll have men at checkpoints asking questions, looking for anyone matching our description. If we run now, we'll be caught within 2 days. Then what do we do? We hide in plain sight. Marsh turned the wagon onto a smaller path, barely visible through the brush. We go to a place Graves would never think to look, and we wait until he stops watching so carefully. Then we move. Where is this place? You'll see. They traveled deeper into the forest, following paths that looked more like animal trails than roads. Afternoon light filtered through the trees in dusty beams. The air smelled of wet earth and rotting leaves. After nearly an hour, they reached a clearing. In the center stood a small, weathered cabin. Rough log walls. Wooden shingle roof turned gray with age. Smoke rose from a stone chimney. Marsh stopped the wagon, helped Denina down, led her to the door. Before he could knock, the door opened. A woman stood there, about 50, hair wrapped in a blue cloth, dressed simple but clean. Dark skin, sharp, assessing eyes. When she saw Denina, her face softened. You got her. I did. Any trouble? More than expected. Thornton Graves was at the auction. The woman's face hardened. Graves. That man is a demon. Did he see you? He saw me bid against him and win. So he knows your face. Knows you exist. Whether he knows more remains to be seen. The woman stepped aside. Come in. Inside, the cabin was bigger than it looked. Fire burning in the hearth. Smell of beans and salt pork cooking. Table. Chairs. Bed in the corner. Another woman, younger, maybe 30, sat mending a shirt. She looked up when Denina entered. Eyes widened. Lord have mercy. She's just a child. Denina is 22, Marsh said. She's stronger than she looks. The older woman stepped forward, took Denina's hands, studied her face carefully, looking for signs of sickness or injury. What's your name, child? Diner. I'm Sarah. This is my daughter Hannah. You're safe here. No one knows about this cabin except people we trust. You'll stay with us until Jacob can arrange the next part of your journey. How long? Denina asked. Days. Maybe weeks, Marsh said. It depends on Thornton Graves. On how hard he pushes. On how quickly I can arrange safe passage north. Denina felt exhaustion crash over her. Fear, uncertainty, the weight of pregnancy pressing down. Sarah sensed it. She guided Denina to the bed. Rest now. We'll talk later. There's food when you're ready. You're safe. That word again, safe. Denina wanted to believe it. Wanted to trust these strangers who said they were helping her. But safety was a luxury enslaved people could never assume. She lay down. Despite everything, sleep pulled her under within minutes. When she woke, it was dark outside. The fire had been rebuilt. The cabin was warm. Sarah and Hannah sat at the table, speaking quietly. Jacob Marsh was gone. Where is he? Denina asked, sitting up. He left an hour ago, Sarah said. He has arrangements to make in Savannah. People to contact. He'll be back tomorrow or the day after. Until then, you're with us. Denina stood, moved to the table. Sarah pushed a bowl toward her. Beans, cornbread, salt pork. Eat. You need strength for what's coming. What's coming? Denina asked. Hannah's voice was quiet but firm. The truth. The truth about who you are. Why Elias Cartwright really sent you here. Why Jacob Marsh spent $1,200 to save you. Because it wasn't just about saving you, Denina. It was about stopping something much worse. Denina felt cold, despite the fire. What are you talking about? Sarah and Hannah exchanged a glance. Then Sarah spoke, and her words turned Denina's world upside down. Elias didn't send you to Savannah just to get rid of you. He sent you here because he knew Thornton Graves would buy you. And he knew exactly what Graves does to pregnant women he buys at auction. He has a pattern, a system, and you were supposed to be his next victim.